Hello everyone, my name is Gail Galang and welcome to our peaceful classroom. Our peaceful classroom is a dedicated space where parents, educators, and other professionals come together to talk about ideas on how we may promote positivity and peace in the lives of our children and our teens. Today and in the next few episodes, we will be talking about one essential aspect of well being, our intellectual wellness. Intellectual wellness is the ability to open our minds to new ideas and experiences. This includes a desire to learn new things, improve what we already know, and seek other challenges in pursuit of lifelong learning. The pandemic has kept us confined in our homes, and in this isolation, many things are left confined in our heads as well. When we are isolated, there is a tendency to overthink and to continuously think of the same thoughts out of fear. Humans tend to overthink because somehow our brains are wired to keep on thinking about possible dangers and threats to our survival. This is a habit that is very distressing, especially for those who are vulnerable to anxiety and depression. Before we even talk about our students or our own children, we need to examine more closely our own breakdowns and breakthroughs as parents. We will be doing this by listening to our protagonist, Dr. Michele Alignay. She earned her Ph.D. in Family Studies at Miriam College, where she is also a lecturer in its higher education unit. Dr. Michele is a registered psychologist and guidance counselor. She is an author and a sought out speaker on topics related to parenting in the digital age, adolescent sexuality, midlifing, and many more. Let's listen to Dr. Michele as she explains how our thoughts become our world.
Welcome, everyone. This is another episode of our Peaceful Classroom. This is Dr. Michele Alignay. I'm a registered psychologist and a registered guidance counselor. I'm also a faculty of the higher education of Miriam College and a book author. And more importantly, I am a parent. Many of us are going through so many changes and challenges this past month. So join me for this episode that I will be sharing with you very valid and useful tools for us parents and educators, us adults helping children to be able to help them better, and more importantly, for us ourselves to have intellectual well-being. So this episode is called Our Thoughts Become Our World. Have you been subject to too much thinking, or shall we say, or call it overthinking the past months? Check out for yourself. What have you been thinking about? What have you been feeling? What are the usual narratives or content of your thoughts? Anong laman ng isip mo at ano yung prosesong pinagdadaanan mo? Have you ever been in that situation that thinking alone tires you out? Sabi nga ng iba, nasa isip pa lang, nasa-stress na tayo. Those are the things that I would like us to explore and I would like us to check. Because as I said, our topic is our thoughts become our worlds, meaning yung mga nasa isip natin, siya yung nagiging buhay natin. And that is very valid. We know that the past months has not been easy. It has been challenging. There's just too much changes. So recall that this challenges, changes, and also this crisis that we have been going through, it's not easy. Maybe we are wired for this, but maybe some of us are really tested by what's happening. But let me just walk through with you some of the important things that I would like you to think about. When I say our thoughts become our world, I would like us to reflect on how we can take care of our intellectual wellness. That is very crucial. Sa panahon ngayon that we're always thinking about our physical health, you know that our intellectual health affects so many aspects of our well-being. Why? Because parents and educators alike, we had too much on our plate. We had too much and we have too much things in our plate. Napakarami nating concerns, napakarami nating pinagdadaanan at napakarami nating kailangan asikasuhin. I know that many of you would think that is it really the parents' role to help their kids in school, to tutor or to teach their kids? That's the common concern that I've noted with all the engagements that I had with parents for the past months. And let me just quote from my favorite family therapist, Virginia Satir. She said this: so much is asked from the parents, yet so little is given. Ulitin ko, so much is asked from the parents, but so little is given. Ano bang ibig sabihin nito? Ang dami natin na hinihingi sa parents, pero napakaliit ng binigay natin. So, I would like to invite you. Can you think of one person who's maybe raising their kids and maybe working, maybe you, maybe a friend, maybe someone in your family, someone that you're close to, that you hear that they're very stressed because they have to go through this work from home situation, they have to manage their household, they have to manage some health concerns, and of course, more importantly, they have to be in tune with their children and be on top of their children's learning needs, which is the needs and the demands of the distance learning modality that we have now. And given that, isn't it a sobrang dami? That's why many people, I've noted how much they are overwhelmed. How many of us are too overwhelmed by everything that's happening? And the tendency is that it builds up and pile up in our thought. So, you know, like a container, I'm looking for a container, but like a container, our intellectual well-being is very critical because it's like that everything it's put there, jumbled up, all the information that we're picking up about health, picking up about distance learning, top it off with our learning for our own work, and navigating what they call the new normal. But everything that is happening all at the same time is there in our head if it's left unprocessed. So I'll repeat that. Everything that's in our head, it's gonna get to us if it's left unprocessed and we do not take care of our intellectual health, or what shall we say, intellectual wellness. So that's why the topic that I would like to share with you is our thoughts become our world. Let's just start with that. It starts, a lot of things in our life starts with a simple thought, because many times that thought becomes how we feel, and then how we feel becomes exactly how we act, how we relate, how we do work, and how we do life. So, as Virginia Satir said, so much is asked from the parents, yet so little is given. So this episode is really meant for us. We're going to look into the changes, the concerns, and the challenges that many of us teachers are going through. If you are a parent, you're both a parent and a teacher like me. But many of us teachers also are supporting parents that do not know which thing to prioritize, do not know how to really teach, and sadly some of them do not know how to parent. That's why there's really a breakdown of a lot of intellect in the intellectual well-being of many people. And I would like to share some points with you on how are we going to navigate through this. I would like to ask you first, what hats do you wear? Anong role ang nilalaro mo sa buhay? So what hats do you wear? There are days that we are parents. There are days that we are teachers. There are days that maybe our family needs us and then we become a sister or a daughter. There are days that we serve in a community, in a church, so we become a ministry worker. But there are days that, have you been yourself also? Do you get lost in your thoughts? Do you try to take care of yourself? But there are days that you are called to be a mom or a mother or a nanay, or there are days that you are just called to be maybe a partner or a wife. What hats do you wear? And many times, if there's just too much, usually it gets to us. It gets to not just our thinking, but it really affects our totality. So all these things that we're thinking about, it gets to us. What happens to us, and I would like you to reflect in all the roles that you're playing, what happens to us, to you, when we focus on all this concern that we have in our lives, diba? How does this, how does it affect our total well-being? Imagine everything that in our head is affecting our heart. It's going to affect our total well-being if we do not resolve how to stop from being stressed here in our thoughts. There's power in what we think because, as they said, have you heard of this? What we focus on grows. Can you say that with me? What we focus on grows. Kung anong tinititigan natin, lumalaki. Kung ang makikita natin sa isang araw are positive things, these positive things, it grows. It radiates to other aspects of our lives. But what if our day is filled with negativity? What if we get so frustrated, we get so tired, we get so exhausted, we get so bitten by life? How would you feel if all the things that's happening to you are what are, shall we say, stressful? How will it grow in you? Because there's such thing as what psychologists call negative interpretation bias. Pag nakita na natin yung isang pangit, unti-unti yan, nadadagdagan. We see the negativity growing. So let's reflect. Where are we here? What we focus on grows, lumalaki. At pag lahat ng thoughts that are negative are left there in our head, left in our intellect, and then that can lead to overthinking. That's the critical part. I've encountered so many people, the critical area that they're trying to combat now in their lives is overthinking. It can take a toll on our total health and well-being. Totoo po yan, hindi ko alam kung narinig nyo na itong overthinking. What is overthinking anyway? Related ba to sa akin? Yes, so much so. Because overthinking is an excessive tendency to monitor, evaluate, and attempt to control all types of thought. I'm not saying that thinking is wrong. I'm not saying that overthinking may be wrong. But if it's consuming you, let me say the word consuming. If all your negativity, your tendency to think about everything that's happening to you, to overanalyze, to overthink, to over-rationalize everything, that it stops you, it hinders you, or limits your decision making as an adult, your ways of relating, dealing with life itself, and that is no longer healthy. There is such thing as underthinking, but there is such thing as overthinking. Underthinking is that you simply don't care. Hindi mo pinapansin yung issue, hindi pinapansin ang problema, and that becomes a problem. But overthinking, thinking alone becomes the problem because you cannot move on anymore with the more important things in life. So that's why you have to reflect. It's important to catch our mental process that affects our own emotions. Let me just share with you what happened to me at the start of the pandemic. I am not excused by all this, even though that I teach and I do webinars and I read a lot and I'm a I do psycho emotional training and I'm aware of all these concepts that I am sharing with you. I'm not excused from experiencing this because at the start of the what we call community quarantine, I had this experience of being overwhelmed by everything that happened to the point that it affected my health. During the first 2 weeks of being in community quarantine, I was not functional. Why? Because the triggered was before the lockdown. I had 6 flights in 2 weeks, to and fro, provincial flights, and I had one trip to the hospital and two trips to the mall. What's the problem with that? What if I'm subjected to the virus? Because I was in, as I said, shall I call it compromise situation that led me to, to experience all this. So looking at that alone, I was crying. One week I was just crying and I have to catch myself. Oh my, this is overthinking. This is no longer healthy. I have lots of what if. I have lot of what if magkasakit ako, what will happen to my family. And then, all the information that is happening outside, all the information about all this crisis that we're going through. And of course, there's the uncertainty of the lockdown. Anong mangyayari sa amin the past few weeks? What about my kids? What about my work? So all this, it took a toll on me. And then I realized, hey, if I keep thinking, how can I start living? If I kept thinking that thinking alone would affect my overall health that I need to take care of, because this is the point that I need to take care of my well-being. Nobody else will do it for me. Let me repeat it. I realized at that moment I have to get up. I have to park all this. I have to choose my battles well. I have to check where am I coming from. And I have to start controlling, maybe not exactly everything, but start controlling my thoughts. That's where the problem begins. When we try to control things beyond us, we tend to overthink. But the more important thing we do is that check where our overthinking is coming from and then check and control only what is inside us. And what is inside us? What is it in my control? I can take care of my health better. I can do other things to be able to help myself into attaining better intellectual well-being, because intellectual well-being affects our emotional well-being, and that emotional well-being might be affecting our physical and spiritual well-being. They are, one after another. They don't operate in just one aspect. So too much thinking, too much analysis, too much what ifs, too much subscribing, too much information, it may be okay at a certain point, but they may not be always helpful if it's getting your space, if it's getting your sanity, if it's getting into you and consuming all of you, that you can no longer function well, that everything that happens outside, you think that you are at risk, and then it can be a source of possible problem. So friends, check yourself. Where are you here? What has been consuming our mind, our thoughts, and intellectual process the past months? That's the kind of reflection I would like you to have. I reflected on that, and then before I know it, I realized, oh my God, this is really not healthy. So that's why I would like to share this with you, because the only way that we can help ourselves, if you start becoming aware. We cannot control all the thoughts that's in our heads. We cannot control the circumstances around us, but we can always check and consciously make a decision to be able to combat overthinking. What are the dangers of overthinking? If you will ask me, Doc Itchel, Why is overthinking dangerous? One, it increases chances of mental health. I like saying this in Tagalog, sa isip mo pa lang, nagkasakit ka na. Sa isip mo pa lang, natalo ka na. Sa isip mo pa lang, stress ka na. So that's why our totality, our total well-being, our mental and physical and emotional health gets affected because it starts with the power of thoughts. The second one, it interferes with problem solving. Many people, they fail to act. They fail to resolve an issue because of their anxiety, because they cannot think straight, they cannot be rational because of overthinking. And that is dangerous. We are in the position that we are adults. People are depending on us, our family, loved ones, our colleagues, and even our students. Many people, whatever work we are doing, many people are depending on us. And if it interferes with our own problem solving, how can we help other people? And you know, another thing, especially when we are in the middle of a personal problem, a personal concern or struggle, it affects our sleep. I don't know if it affects our diet. Sometimes people overthink, but they overeat also. But likely it affects our sleep because there's just too much in the head. There's too much happening inside us. And sabi nga, diba, our thoughts, our title again, our thoughts affect our world. So let's check what's in your world right now. Maybe we'll go back to this question. What has been consuming your mind, thoughts, intellectual process the past ones? Because you have to take note of the danger of overthinking because this exactly has a big impact, a critical impact, shall I say, in your intellectual wellness and in your overall well-being. That is very crucial. So overthinking, as I said earlier, it's normal if you have it once in a while. Paminsan-minsan, okay lang. Pag grave situation, hindi maiwasan, yes, it's okay. Pero kung makaka-apekto na sa atin, hindi na tayo makaka-function ng maayos the way you usually do, then it becomes a problem. Some people becomes too bombarded with everything. Maybe you're tuned into all the kinds of news, all news outfit, all the social media platforms that you're reading or browsing through. It's all bombarding you, and then shall we say, is it still helpful? It's good to get information. As was said, it's not about all the information that we're getting, but how are we processing all these informations? Another, they ruminated of the past. Eh, kasi dati eh. Some people, you know, I noticed during this past months, they keep comparing the then and the now. What's the then and the now? Simply the pre-pandemic and the now. And it becomes a problem. Why? Because some things in our past, in the pre-pandemic ways, is not applicable at the moment. Going to the mall, going outside, and then they keep thinking, hindi ko na magawa yung ginagawa ko dati. I feel so outwitted by life. I'm so stressed here in the house. Yeah, we may be stressed, but we are safe. So they ruminated of the past events that happening. Another one, worry matters of the future of or worry matters of the future are external to them. People overthink because they worry about things in the future. For example, paano na yung anak ko? Mawawalan daw kami ng trabaho daw. No news yet about your employment status, and then you're thinking about the college, the future of your child, wherein he's only in preschool. That's overthinking. The lot of what ifs, the lot of must be, a lot of shoulds, and so many of could have beens. Do you know? If you have all these narratives in your thought patterns, then it might be overthinking because there's all external to us. And it's very important that you check how are these affecting you. When you start thinking of the what if, what happens to you? May naging resulta bang maganda? If you start thinking that the standard, it must be like this, it should be this way, but you are not in the position to work on anything. You're trying to control something that is beyond you. May nangyari ba? That's why that's overthinking also leads to a lot of frustration, it leads to a lot of emotional outbursts, and it leads to a lot of anxiety because we worry about something that we are not in control of. So let's check what is it that we are in control of.
Dr. Itchell validates the present reality shared by many parents. That is, parents have a lot of things on their plates these days. Parents wear several hats that require them to perform certain tasks. You have parents who work from home, supervise children's online school activities, care for elderly parents, and on top of these, attend to household chores such as cooking, cleaning, washing, and many more. Sometimes these tasks overlap or get overstretched to a point of physical fatigue and emotional exhaustion. Somewhere in between is a brain that is overworked with repetitive thoughts of inadequacy and sometimes worthlessness. The repetitive thoughts of inadequacy raise stress levels and interfere with everyday functioning. When our brain remembers bad experiences, it lights up other memories of similar times of inadequacy. Dr. Itchell reminds us about a quote from Robin S. Sharp. He said, "What you focus on grows, what you think about expands, and what you dwell upon determines your destiny." Thus, if we keep feeding our thoughts with what ifs, shoulds, must be's, and could have beens, we are journeying towards a life of despair and darkness. So, how do we stop ourselves from overthinking about the future and ruminating about the past? Let's listen it once again to Dr. Itchell as she shares practical tips to stop overthinking.
The first thing that we should check that we are in control of is our thoughts. Sabi nga, when stress happens to us, the first thing that we should check is that external or internal. Many times, stressors happen externally. But most of the time, the feeling of stress is aggravated because we add up to that feeling because of our thoughts. So it was said by Pamela Hayes, a psychologist, in her book, Creating Wellbeing. She said that the biggest stressor or the biggest source of stress is actually our thoughts. Sa isip pa lang natin, nasa-stress na tayo. And the title of our session, our thoughts become our world. So let me share with you how can we navigate this new normal and how can we help ourselves so that we can stop overthinking. So tips to stop overthinking. As I said earlier, it's okay to overthink once in a while, but we have to work on what we can work on. And it starts with our thoughts. Can you say that with me? It starts with my thoughts. Thank you. Supporting intellectual well-being. How can we help ourselves and others overthinking ways? So if you are in this position that you are overthinking of it, or if you teachers or parents are in position that you have people around you who are overthinking, maybe a colleague, maybe a student, maybe a friend, maybe a family member. This is how we support each other in order for us to be intellectually well. So how can we help ourselves and others overthinking ways? One, the most important thing is social support. It's crucial that whenever families are in crisis, like now, social support is very critical. You know, social support also allows us to understand the person's realities. Yan ang napaka-importante. Kaya yung iba nag-overthink maybe because they are in a compromising position, their health is at risk, some family members are away, they're not together. So it becomes crucial for many. So you have to understand, in psychology or in counseling, we also term this understanding where the person is coming from. Social support, that's we bridge it through empathy and compassion na napaka-importante ngayong mga panahon ng crisis. And if you look at that crisis situation in families, if we were able, social support is one of the key to be able to help people to be resilient. And I hope that you, the one listening here, is the supportive person that can help and support others who are in need. You don't need to go too far. You look around at the people around you, your partner, husband, children, your students, your clients, maybe people that you work with, your colleagues, maybe even your boss, or maybe the parents that you encounter, or other friends who are just around you. Be that kind of social support. Be the person who will be the source of empathy and compassion. So another aspect that I would like you to look into is that how can we break free from overthinking? This is critical. How can we support the intellectual well-being of parents and adults as as educators? That's why social support is needed, because this is giving people the feeling that we have of each other. But if you have people whom you can help to break free from overthinking, and then this is what we can do. The first thing is that identify the emotion. Identify the emotion. What do I mean by this? You know, the people are thinking, ano ba, I get this common question a lot. Ano ba yung dapat na inuuna na tingnan? I get this common question. Is it really, are we supposed to use? What are we supposed to to nurture our head or our hearts? Do you know that our emotions is combined with our intellect? Our emotions is a process of our intellectual process. So that's why it's called psycho-emotional. So that's why in being able to identify the emotion, what's one way to break free from overthinking? Because maybe that product of what's in our head is too much cluttered and it's causing us anxiety, it's causing us frustration, it's causing us despair, it's causing us anguish, it's causing us too many emotions. So it's good to identify. If you are with people who are tending to overthink, identifying the emotion will be able to help to get through, so that we can get to the root of why are they overthinking. So it's not, we cannot just judge. As I in my slide, don't judge what they're feeling, and listen not to the emotion, but to the in between the lines of that emotion. It's not really the emotion itself, but the emotions, listen to this. No, it's not the emotion itself, but the words and feelings in between the emotion. And then we have to, if we are talking to these people, we have to ask the right questions without judgment. Oh my, this is critical, friends. What do I mean by this? We are in this stage that we tend to judge people and we tend to judge ourselves and the way we think, naku, bakit ako nalulungkot? Hindi ako dapat malungkot. Bakit ako umiiyak? Dapat hindi ako umiyak. It's not about that. So we have that you have to remember that that emotion points us to a need. Sometimes we cannot really comprehend what exactly that causing that emotion. But when we start identifying the emotion, we are led to what we are thinking. And maybe that's why some get into emotional outbursts, because there's too much overthinking that they cannot explain. In other words, they cannot process anymore what's in their emotions. It's like a container, or maybe a glass, punong-puno na siya ng laman, no more space, and we cannot be able to, this is, yeah, if our heads, it's just supposed to be like this, and if it's too cluttered, we cannot anymore. Kung punong-puno na, hindi na natin alam kung anong dapat alisin, hindi natin alam kung anong dapat unahin. So first, identify the emotion. Look not in the emotion, in itself, but look at it as a key to listen to the words and feelings of the person and ask the right question without judgment. What do I mean by that? Ask the right question. What do you think helped made you feel that way? So you're upset. So what do you think you're upset about? So we don't give judgment to what the other person is feeling. The second one, consider the trigger and possible short-term solution. What do you mean by this? Consider the trigger is that you have to understand the cause of the possible trigger, meaning what made you start feeling or thinking that way? Yeah, that's a good question to ask. Maybe yourself or somebody else that you're talking with. What do you think is the possible cause? May nangyari ba kanina? What happened to you the past few days that maybe triggered it? And sometimes, oh, nung palang No'n palang hindi ako pinansin ng anak ko. I got upset by it. And then why? Maybe because I really felt offended. Because I'm so tired already and I get that. I feel that I don't deserve that kind of treatment. Trigger. Just the reaction of the child to the mother. But maybe the mother is going through her own exhaustion. She has self-pity pangs and she's less compassionate about situation. Provide immediate support. It's just, simple act of listening. Oh, it's good for you to understand that that's the kind of reaction you had towards your child. And I would like you to explore this. Sometimes the problem, it's not the problem in itself. Like the reaction of the mother to the child, it's not the problem in itself. It's an indicator of underlying problem. So we cannot work through long-term solution right away. You just provide immediate support. And many times, we as adults, there's just one support that we need to listen. Listen with the heart, listen with compassion, listen with understanding of the head and the heart, and listen. Because some people, like us, when we start talking and then we share, remember the filling in the overthinking, nababawasan yung nasa isip and we make sense talking to someone and having someone to listen to us. It makes sense. So please, if there's something that you can do as an immediate support, that is being a listening ear. Work through long-term solution. If possible, if you can, siguro let's explore next time what could be the possible cause why you get offended. So let's check your family dynamics. Ayan. But kung hindi kaya, listening and providing, I will pray for you, I can understand you, I am listening to you. That would be very good. Short-term but very valuable solution. And number 3, express understanding. Sana naintindihan natin. Support the person's feeling and validate it. Let's go back to that. My child rejected me. Yan. Support the person's feelings and validate it. If that person or that mother said that I feel rejected by my son with how he acted towards me. And it's a good way to say, yeah, I can imagine. Never say, mali yan. Intindihin mo na lang, nanay ka. Wag natin because that's invalidating the emotion of the person. That's invalidating the emotion. How do we show support? Tell them that I can feel you, I understand you. But when we start saying na, oh sige na, move on ka na, wag na yan, that's invalidating. When we say to the other person na, intindihin mo na, anak mo yon, matatapos din yan, that's invalidating. So it's, if the person is open, we can gather valid information about their own context. That this happen always? Is your child really reacting to you that way? Is there something also that you feel that, aggravating the situation? And how gauge how the person perceives the critical situation. And also you may ask, express understanding. Is it very important for you? Why is it very important for you? Yung pala, baka talagang top value niya yung respect. Ayaw niya talaga ng ganun yung nararamdaman sa mga anak. O baka naman, yung tingin niya doon is that wala siyang kwentang nanay. So you have to understand where the person is coming from. So asking non-judgmental question and gathering valid information about their home context. Do not judge. Do not put words in their mouth, but express understanding and ask open-ended questions will help us to perceive the critical situation and if it's becoming a source of distress, a source of intellectual uh, risk or mental health concern for the person. And another tip, reframe if needed. If irrational, listen with understanding. What I mean by irrational, if the mother said na, oh my, I really felt upset about how my son reacted towards me. Feeling ko wala akong kwentang nanay, hindi nila ako pinapansin. So if it's becoming too irrational already that there's an outburst and then we can stop, we can just listen with understanding. If the person is calmer, help them reframe the situation by exploring other side of and see the opportunities of or possible growth points. What do I mean by this? Help reframe the situation and explore possibilities. Ito yung gusto kong i-emphasize, friend. Reframe if needed. Alam nyo, ang madalas na naririnig natin, there's a positivity to this. We should not only survive but rather thrive in this trying time. Another area, we have to see the blessing behind the burden, the mess behind the message behind the mess. And another area is that we just don't just glide through. We thrive through this crisis situation. We know that, but if a person is in the middle of overthinking, in the middle of being too consumed by his thoughts, his emotions, that he cannot longer process what's happening, he cannot see the silver lining. The person cannot see the positive side on this. And how do we reframe the situation? We invite the person to look at the situation in another angle. So maybe in that case of the parent and the child, you can ask the mom, so if this is the case, what do you think is the invitation of the situation? Because possibly it might be an invitation to look into in depth on the parent-child relationship. Maybe that kind of of reaction of a child is telling you about how you are as parent and kid. So all the situations, I believe, as an individual and as a person and as a professional, each situation there's another angle. Each situation there's another way of looking at it. In despite us being so in the middle of a difficult situation, there's always another way of looking at it. There is something that we can learn from. There's an opportunity to grow. We may not have it at the moment of anguish, at the moment of frustration, at the moment when we're stuck with everything in our head. But encounter once we've done our part in trying to be intellectually well, we can reframe the situation. If we have learned to reframe or help someone reframe a situation they're in, that's the best invitation to mature and to grow. Kasi naniniwala ako, kahit na gaano pa kahirap, kahit gaano pa yung pinagdaanan natin, we can always look back and say, this is what I've learned in this situation. Pandemic has taught me this. My crisis situation has taught me that. And that is reframing. And that is a very good invitation. But let me just point with you that you have to focus also on the present. That's the last part. Overthinking can go wayward. That's why a lot of people, they're having difficulty trying to grasp the future because they are not in the future. They're in the future already. They're not in the present. So how can we navigate ourselves in this crisis situation while resisting and managing from not overthinking? Focus on the present. Overthinking can go wayward, so best to focus on the task at hand, the present situation, or the here and the now. I'll repeat, the here and the now. Others call it mindfulness. Other calls it the here and the now. I simply call it the present. The present moment is the only moment available for us. While we are having being in the middle of a difficult situation, we also have to maximize available resources to work on possible solutions. Others are overthinking kasi hindi pwede to, wala akong ganito, paano ko makakakuha? But this is the time to really, sabi nga sa Tagalog, kung maliit ang kumot, matutong mamaluktot. And that's a very good mindset. We focus on the present. If there is a stressful situation, we peer closely on the stressful situation and we focus on, hey, what is this that it's calling me to? What is this making me into? What is the invitation of these circumstances? Maximize available resources. What can I use to be able to be better after all this? So that is focusing on the present moment. Friends, I would like you to reflect on these points. Cope intellectually by taking one step at a time. And another thing is that, so there are three areas here. As I end, cope intellectually. Why is it important? Our thoughts become our world. So it all starts here. When we cope intellectually, we are learning to take one step at a time. Isa-isa lang. Focus on the present moment. Focus on weekend. Reframe the situation. Try to check that emotion in the present moment. Be able to ask that emotion, saan galing thought pattern yan? Kasi doon yun konektado. And then, one thing that has helped me is that taking one step at a time and making peace with imperfections. Remember, this show is called Our Peaceful Classroom. And our classroom can be life itself. Making peace with imperfections, it just means that I always say perfection is unicorn. There's no such room for that. And in the middle of the pandemic, the more that we know how to make peace with imperfections, the more that we can thrive through it. Why? Because we learn how to be resilient. We learn to take care of our well-being despite the limitation of the resources. We learn what to prioritize. We learn to simplify. We learn to make do with what we have. We learn that, okay, hindi lahat perfecto. I cannot have everything that I want, but I will make the most of what I have. And that is the perfectly imperfect life. Learning to make the most of what we have. So here, how can we cope intellectually? Take one step at a time and make peace with imperfection. And I would like to end with this 3C. If I started with the 3C, and that is changes, the challenges, and the crisis that we're navigating, I would like you to reflect, check your triggers. Check the triggers of your overthinking. Another one, check your triggers. The next one is connect with yourself. Connect with your thoughts. Connect with the right people, with the support, and connect with someone. Connect with God, and that is the second. Check, and then connect to be able to connect well with your thoughts. And third, you can choose or create a life that you like daily. As I said, one day at a time. As I said, make peace with imperfection. How can we cope? And how can we have better intellectual well-being? Create a day that you like. Create a day based on what you have. Create a day based on all the available resources to you. And I promise you, if you take one day at a time, if you make peace with imperfections, sooner that overthinking would go away. We're going to say bye-bye to it, and you will find yourself intellectually better. And it's going to affect the whole of you, your emotions, and your total well being. And more importantly, other people will see it, your relationships will be better, and that you can share more of yourself to the people around you. That's it for today. This is Dr. Michele Alignay saying God bless you and may you journey through better well being.
Dr. Ichel said that it is normal to overthink once in a while, especially during this time when we are on uncharted ground. However, it becomes a red flag when overthinking interferes with effective problem solving and everyday functioning. Dr. Ichel mentioned 5 ways to break free from overthinking. She said that tuning into feelings help us identify emotions that affect the way we think. She also mentioned reflecting on what triggers us and to work through on possible solutions. When dealing with others who have self defeating thoughts, we can help them by gathering valid information and reframing it if necessary. Finally, Dr. Ichel reminds us to focus on the present moment because it is the only thing available to us. Here are some tasks that will allow you to work on your own breakthrough moments. First, do deep breathing exercises. Breathe in deeply and exhale gently. When you exhale, it will help if you visualize negative thoughts leaving your mind. Try to do this for 10 minutes. Second, write down your thoughts in a journal. This exercise somehow externalizes the negative thoughts so that it is no longer a part of our head. Third, try to put an end to rumination by keeping yourselves busy. You can do this by doing the daily tasks that come with your many hats. Instead of agonizing on thoughts of inadequacy, focus on the little goals that you can achieve at the present moment. Let me end with a quote from Lao Tzu. He said, and I quote, "If you are depressed, you are living in the past. If you are anxious, you are living in the future. If you are at peace, you are living in the moment." That's all for today. Thank you very much for being here. See you again in our sacred learning space, our peaceful classroom.